In a world where there's already too many podcasts, one man dares to do the unthinkable and create another podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Not Another Formula One podcast. This week, we're in Bahrain. And boy, what a weekend it was. I hope everyone enjoyed the race. I sure did. This was the fourth round of the 2025 Formula One World Championship. And a great one at that. We'll start with Friday practice. 6 teams fielded alternate drivers in FP1. These include, and sorry for me butchering these names, Ryu Hirakawa for Haas, Dino Beganovic for Ferrari, Frederick Vesti, Mercedes, Felipe Drugovich for Aston Martin. Now that one kind of hurts, because I've heard Felipe Drugovich's name for years in Formula One. I feel like he's been a reserve driver for about 4 straight seasons now. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Luke Browning for the Williams, and Ayumu Iwasa for Red Bull, taking over for Max. Speaking of Max, much like everyone else this weekend, seemed to be full of nothing but complaints. I guess his brakes were terrible, which at this track is definitely not great. You know, high speed, long straights, you're going to need good brakes at the end, and I guess maybe the issue was that at the end of those long straights, the brakes were too cool, and, you know, it's very important to get heat in those brakes. So next we get into qualifying, and hands down my biggest gripe from qualifying was the Nico Hülkenberg Q1 lap being deleted 45 minutes after it had taken place. And devastatingly, had that lap been deleted during Q1 and not during Q3, Alex Albon could have been into Q3 again. And I think that really hurt his race weekend. I think he finished 12th, but he was definitely in on some points if he'd have just not gotten knocked out. And this just reminds me of all the other reasons why these stewards are lacking. Because why did it take them 45 minutes to delete the lap? It seems like during the race, they were very spot on every lap that was deleted. I think like 4, maybe 5 or 6 different drivers got black and white flags for track limits. It makes no sense to me. Esteban Ocon crashed in Q2, brought out a red flag. I think he was coming out of like turn 1 or 2, and yeah, that low speed exit, if you don't get all the grip, you're going to be in the wall. And we saw it happen to Romain Grosjean. Luckily, it wasn't that bad, but ironically, that had happened in a Haas. Oscar Piastri got a hell of a lap in and slapped it on pole right in front of George Russell. Lando Norris was only able to put the car in 6th, right in front of his championship rival, Max Verstappen, in 7th, which would have been a bad thing if it weren't for what he did at the start of the race. But we'll discuss that later. Yuki finally getting it into Q3 in the Red Bull. Someone's got to do it. But only started 10th, which is disappointing. But obviously he wasn't going to do any better than Max. So the race does start. And noticeably, the Ferrari boys are the only 2 people, or two of the few people in the front that are starting on the medium tires. Big debate going into the race was whether it could be a one-stop, but it was always more likely that it would be a two-stop. The Ferrari guys definitely noticed that it was impossible to do a one-stop on account that the hard tires were trash. And I believe nobody prior to the race had ridden on the hard tires at all. So when they didn't work for Max, I think everybody started realizing the hard tires weren't the go. But, yeah, the race starts, and biggest talking point was Lando Norris's very malfunctiony start. I don't even know if you'd call it a jump start, because it looks like he just rolled forward in neutral. I don't know how that happens, or how he even allowed that to happen, but that sounds to me like a very Lando Norris thing to do. And unlike a Lando Norris thing to do, actually had a hell of a start, jumping from 6th to 3rd, right up behind George Russell. But obviously he received a 5-second penalty for that. Probably well-deserved, but it really made no difference because that McLaren is a rocket ship. There was a lot of issues with Red Bull, most noticeably those pit stops. What was it? The little light indicator that lets the drivers know they're free to go was malfunctioning, which, I mean, I get it that they're automized, and like whenever all the wheel guns are fully locked in, the sign switches to green, and it lets the driver know they're safe to release. They're free to go safely. But I don't see why they don't just bring back the old flipper board, stop and go, you know? Sounds a lot simpler. It ended up giving Max, what was it, like a 4.5 second stop, and Yuki ended up having like a 4.2 second stop, which is not good at all. Max got terribly stuck behind Esteban Ocon coming out of that first pit stop and was practically in his back pocket the whole rest of the race, up until the safety car, of course. Speaking of the safety car, that was because Yuki Tsunoda decided he wanted to, bump shoulders with Carlos Sainz. And that poor Williams car, that poor Williams team, I'm sure like 75% of their budget just goes towards damages at this point. I mean, you'd think they'd have gotten it together, praying that they no longer have the Logan Sargent or the Nicholas Latifi to throw it in the wall every week. Getting a giant hole in your side pod is definitely causes for concern, and he retired. Who probably should have retired, but stuck it out like a champ, was George Russell, because that Mercedes was on its last limbs, it looked like. I believe there was issues with the transponder, the DRS, whatever the hell a brake-by-wire is, and GPS issues. But still managed to hold off Lando Norris. That's pretty insane. Back to the Ferrari guys. How about Lewis Hamilton getting a pretty good stop with the safety car? This, I believe, was Ferrari's best finish as a team this year. It's very competitive, it looks like to me. But maybe this is just the best track for them to do so. I'd say they were probably the second or third best car here. Lots of laps were deleted, as discussed earlier. Lando, Max, Lewis, Isaac Hadjar even, I believe Yuki, were all given black and white flags. But understandably, because at Bahrain, it's very flat. Well, I mean, there's a lot of undulation in the course, but the curbs are very flat. And it's understandable to want to extend a little bit, push the limits. Speaking of pushing the limits, how about that little scrap with Carlos Sainz and Max before he retired? Quite unsportsmanlike from Carlos. Really did not leave him any room at all. But I think, why would you want to be so gracious to a former teammate who he probably wishes he was teammates with right now? Because I think Carlos is realizing that Williams is not that great. But, he's sticking it in for the long haul. A little bit of post-race. I mean, Nico Hülkenberg was disqualified for excessive skid wear, which, if that was going to happen, this would be the track to do it. You're going to run the car very low, get the most, get the least amount of drag by running it so low. And you're going to scrape that skid wear. You're going to scrape that skid plate. So yeah, McLaren obviously dominating from start to finish. Lando couldn't get past George, though he probably should have. But Oscar Piastri proving, honestly, to me, that he is the better driver of the two. I think if there's going to be a championship fight, it's going to be between these two teammates. And I think of the two, Oscar will always have the cooler head. Max finished 6th on the very last lap, just edging out Pierre Gasly. 6th is very disappointing, I'm sure, but I think the gap in the standings only is 8 points between him and first place. So, still recoverable. Getting his first points for the team. Yuki Tsunoda finishing 9th. Very good day for him, if you put things in perspective. 9th isn't too bad. We're just glad to see our king get some points. Speaking of Red Bull and that car this weekend, I think they know it's really bad, but I think it's probably just this track. I think they're going to go to Saudi and step it up a notch. Bahrain just isn't the track for the Red Bull car. Which makes me concerned as to why Max's manager, whose name I can't remember, would run up on Helmut Marko like he did after the race. But in my opinion, I think Helmut Marko needs to be run up on. I think this man genuinely thinks he's bigger than the team itself. And the same kind of goes with Christian Horner. They're obviously not gelling well together. And Helmut talks to the media too much. They both talk to the media too much, but Helmut tends to say some outlandish shit for no reason. And if Max was ever going to leave Red Bull, it's probably going to be because of this divide between Christian Horner and Helmut Marko. As for if Helmut Marko, he definitely won't stay if Max leaves, but I don't even know if Max would want to keep him around. I don't know if he needs all that negativity. I get that he owes a lot to Helmut. I mean, he kind of discovered him, but he doesn't need to have him around anymore. But moving on from Red Bull, Mercedes, despite all the issues with the car, George was able to bring home P2. And Kimi Antonelli finishing his first race not in the points, which is disappointing, but I'm sure he'll bounce back. I think strategy was probably just the issue there. I don't think it was his pace. Ferrari boys having a hell of a day, like I just said. Charles in 4th, and Lewis climbing from 9th to 5th, and even getting driver of the day. I read somewhere that after the race, Lewis didn't hug Mohammed bin Sulayem, and I don't blame him. The whole FIA is a bunch of jokesters. Aston Martin had a careless day. Fernando finished 15th. Lance Stroll came in 17th. Just not the car. I mean, we all knew this car wasn't going to do much. Funny that only Lance has scored any points in it, I believe. There's a lot of irony in that. Speaking of scoring points, Pierre Gasly, who started 4th, pretty insane, slapping an Alpine into 4th place on the grid, finished 7th, which I believe was the first points for Alpine this season. Well deserved for the tripod man. Williams, Alex Albon finished 12th. Only missing points, in my opinion, because of that qualifying fuck up from the stewards. He should have been in Q1. Well, no, he shouldn't have been knocked out of Q1. And, of course, Carlos Sainz, rather anonymous weekend. And not finishing the race. Isaac Hadjar finished 13th. I don't even remember where Liam Lawson finished, but it really doesn't matter because I don't think he's getting the most out of that RB car anyways. And the Steak Kick Sauber folk, of course, Nico Hulkenberg was disqualified, and Gabriel Bortoleto finished 18th. Anonymous as hell, once again. I think I was correct. Actually, I'm incorrect. Because in my championship predictions, I believed that this team wasn't going to score more than the 1 point that they scored last season. But they've got 7th. Or no, they've got 7 points, I believe. And that's probably going to be all they're going to get for the whole rest of the season. It's not looking great. On the up and up is Haas. How about those Haas boys? I mean, I thought for sure after, Ocon's crash in qualifying and Ollie Behrman pretty lackluster qualifying, points probably weren't going to be possible for them today, but I think they got a decent strategy. Esteban Ocon finished 8th, and Ollie Behrman scoring his first points not just in F1, because I think he did in Jeddah last year for Ferrari when he substituted, but his first points for his first official team, Haas, finishing in 10th, 1 point. And quite beautifully, his father came on the radio after to congratulate him. That was nice to see. So, after this race, the championship is Lando Norris leading with 77 points. Oscar Piastri moves to second with 70. And Max Verstappen in third with 69. Nice. Putting McLaren in the lead with 147 points, I believe. Math? Am I mathing? I don't know if I'm mathing right, but I'm mathing. Mercedes moves to second with 93 points. And Red Bull is in third with 71. Can you believe that Yuki Tsunoda is the first driver since I believe it was Las Vegas last season to score points in that second Red Bull seat. That's like 5 races, maybe like 5 or 6 races and a couple of sprints. And it's taken this long for someone to finally get points in that second Red Bull seat. And now we're 4 races in now, about to be 5. And Max has 69 of the 71 points. It's going to be a long year for Red Bull. That's for sure. So very quickly, I'm going to give a top 10 finishers. First place, Oscar Piastri. Second, George Russell. Lando Norris in third. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton in fourth and fifth, respectively. Max Verstappen in sixth. Pierre Gasly in seventh. Esteban Ocon in eighth. Yuki Tsunoda in ninth. And Oliver Behrman in 10th. Jeddah is next week, April 18th through the 20th. A very fast, narrow, speed-centric street circuit. Probably the most unforgiving circuit of the calendar. We'll see how we fare there. We'll see how McLaren plans to extend their championship, as both of their drivers are in great form. We're going to see if Mercedes can keep it up. Will Kimi bounce back? Will George Russell be able to grab another podium he probably doesn't deserve? Probably. Ferrari, having a actually good weekend for once. Can they keep that up? Probably not. Red Bull should, if I'm not speaking out of line, have a much better weekend in Jeddah, as their car tends to be good on that kind of circuit. But I will give my 3 predictions. In first, I believe Max will strike back and win the race, because it seems this season that qualifying is what's going to win the championship. Whoever tends to start first has finished first. And Max has a lot of experience on this track. Well, probably about the same as everyone else. But I think Max is great at this track with his focus and ability. I think it won't be easy. He probably will have a very terrible free practice, but then he'll come in and slap it on pole in Q3 out of nowhere and make us all look silly. My second prediction, Ferrari will get on the podium for once. I've already made some predictions for Ferrari before, and they've proved me wrong, so who knows if this will even be correct. Every prediction I've made about Ferrari has gone the exact opposite way. And 3, there's going to be at least 2 safety cars, because if you thought Australia in the wet was going to be bad for these rookies, they're in for a whole nother race in Jeddah. I think only Oliver Behrman and maybe one other have any Formula One experience in Jeddah. But we'll see. Until next time, everybody, thank you for watching and listening to Not Another Formula One podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and all the things that make a channel grow, so we can grow together. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.